that down. Are we on then? All right.
Oh,
Let's see, I know there are at least two of you out there who are watching this, Sue and Sharon. Sent you the handouts earlier today. If you have any questions, Hun, can they text you? You want to give them your number?
You sure you want to do that?
Okay. So if you have any questions, you can text or call Chris, and she'll be happy to throw them into the mix. We have an extra conference mic, so hopefully you can pick up some of the chatter around the table and things. Hope you're online, and welcome to the gift of time. So, shall we get started?
Good start.
Let's talk to the Lord first.
all right.
I always think that's a great idea. Father, we ask you to join us here tonight, because the time that we're talking about is a gift that you gave us. Right from the very beginning, you gave us, human beings, a gift of time. Coupled with that was the gift of free choice. We have those things, and we so appreciate that, Lord. And we just ask that you be with us tonight, open our hearts, open our minds, open our hearing, our seeing, so that we can begin to see time as you see it. Ask for your blessings on all who are here and even those who couldn't make it tonight. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. I have to tell you, when I was a young engineering manager back in 1812, a long, long time ago, I read a book called The Time Trap. It's still very popular. And it was written by a fellow named R. Alex Mackenzie. I remember R. Alex. And he was in Hartford, and in those days they had a lot of these workshops and things. And Alex came and he did 2-day on time management. I noticed a couple of things. We didn't start on time. We didn't stop on time. We didn't come back from breaks on time. And he ran out of time. I thought, why am I reading this book? He had some ideas in it that were pretty good, but the one thing he kept saying was, delegate that to your secretary, delegate that to your secretary. And I'm going, looking at my colleagues and go, well, we don't got no secretary. We can't do that. So this is sort of the culmination. I've done this in several different places over the years. And I like the idea of it being a gift of time. And I've taken a little bit different approach to the time stuff. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But if you go up to the first page, there's a couple of questions there. I'd like you to jot down some thoughts for yourself, and then just talk with your colleagues at the table for a couple of minutes, and I'll ask you some of the stuff there, especially around the third one. Because for part two, one of the things I want to do is you may have some individual issues you'd like to deal with, specific stuff for how your time is going. And I'll bring in some stuff relative to each of those. So we're sort of going to customize part two a little bit more. Yeah, give me a few minutes to do that. And as you're watching at home, Sue and Sharon, be sure to jot down your thoughts on that too. And if you want to email them back to me, I'll blend them into next week's stuff as well. whenever you're ready, feel free to talk to each other.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Sheba, and I'm a procrastinator.
That's beautiful.
Procrastinator.
But that's not who I am,
I do that on all
because
my
I'm
own
loved
stuff.
by the king.
When it comes to work stuff, I'm always pushing forward. When it comes to something I want to do myself, and procrastinate. I procrastinate until it's or something. It's not about that.
I'm really good at work. I'm really good at work. I know what to do. I have a schedule, and that's what I do. That's what I do. To the point where sometimes I get afraid to go home because I know I'm not going to know what to do when I get home.
Yeah, you're right. I just like to brain lock. There's so many different things going
So,
on.
okay, when I watch you get here,
Done, and I just.
is that what it is? To be?
Shut down.
I have a hard time switching gears, switching.
Yeah.
I think just relaxing or
Really tough for me.
having the.
I procrastinate a lot
apartment.
because I
Yeah, you're still on
can
vacation.
never get it right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm able to be
Pictures
here.
Somewhere.
Or my time would be managed to be here.
Get it, do it right, and I'll just really procrastinate and wait until I have it just in place. Just, you know, write lists about lists. And instead of that, it's, you know, yeah.
That's cool.
I didn't even think of that, thanks.
There goes the cat, the kitty. I love the kitty. Yes. Yeah, I gotta put that down. Easily distracted.
Finish tasks in the time that I know I could have.
So what brought you to the class?
Especially if it's stuff that has to do with paper, filing stuff, filling stuff out, or stuff that's just very, not a strong point of mine.
Yeah, repetitive, processing paper, repetitive things, filing, things like that. I kind of like, I'll
Sound
go
like
in
something
and,
I could use.
I'll actually look for something else to do, rather than just do it myself.
Yeah, instead of doing the hard stuff first and getting it out of the way, I save it to the last and then I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Desire to learn how to manage my time better.
or the week's over. Coming up on the end of the month.
Yeah, yeah, it's good.
What
Yeah,
brought you here?
yeah, repetitive, like, things that you gotta do every day.
We're not allowed to say our truck.
No.
I already said it. I already
The
said
first
it.
two things, same thing as everybody else is here for, to learn to be a little more intentional and proactive in using our time.
Yeah.
Just something that's been also pretty much work and something that's not about anything else. So,
1 hour. One.
One.
Yeah, I have 2 step.
I'm
Kids
not.
are older than that at house.
Good idea.
Oh, great.
Texas,
Uh,
right?
They're gonna be out of the house soon.
We guys need to talk about that,
Have fun time doing it.
right?
That's what you think. I mean,
You watch the camel, but
It's
on
just
my
as
own
bad.
now.
Look at the kitty, I'm bringing the kitty to distract me. Round him up.
She was in a lot of pain, but I'll.
No, it's not. You're a little harder. Charlie, are you funny?
You're Adrian.
No.
Glad you could join us.
They're all mine. They're all mine.
So.
I also think
Yes, I need it.
for me, discerning is number 3 different from number 2 really needs to be done.
Busy stuff.
I already.
First,
Oh, I'm good at busy stuff, yeah, things that just suck up
The way
time.
I reading it, it's
Yeah.
pretty, too, so it kind of fits.
That's what I did, I said, see number 2.
Good work. Okay.
Hi, Adrian.
I really. That's what I
You can't sit there, you gotta sit down here or over here.
Let's talk for a couple minutes about some
Chat.
of these.
Hi, Adrian.
I'm just sort of curious about that first one. What was the cost that some of you had to come here tonight?
Taking time away from other things that we could be doing.
Yeah. Tracy, I loved yours, I heard. Can you repeat it?
It cost me lots of distractions with a slice of guilt.
Yeah, lots of distractions with a slice of guilt. Your mom's in the hospital?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a choice that we make. They begin to be trade-offs. How about some others? What did it cost you to come here tonight? You don't say the cost of the registration. What'd you have to give up to be here?
I gave up sitting on the couch watching TV.
Yeah, me too.
Procrastinating what I should do.
Making dinner for my family.
Time for dinner.
Yeah,
Well, that's why
time
I
for
was
time for the
late.
family, things like
That's
that.
my excuse. I was picking the vegetables in the garden
Right,
for dinner, so.
yeah, it's all choices.
From the garden?
From the
Good
garden.
dad.
Now, what I'm really interested in is 2 and 3. They're very similar kinds of questions. And what brought you here? Was there a particular issue that you're dealing with? I've heard a couple of people talk about procrastinating already.
Procrastination.
Want to learn a little bit more. What are some of the things that you've got? What brought you here? What do you want to get out of it? What would be helpful?
Well, one of the things I was saying, I have a hard time switching from, like, we can do stuff at work and work's easy because we know what to do there, but switching gears and transitioning from work to home or work to something else.
Yeah.
Do you bring work home with you?
I can't say.
There's just more work at home with me, actually. It's
Different
just
kind of
different
work.
kind of work that
Okay.
I'm not as good at,
Yeah.
so it's hard
Okay.
for me to,
All right. How do I make that transition?
yeah, prioritizing stuff.
Okay.
Being in leadership, I always try and look for ways to do things more cost efficiently and make more efficient use of my time. Try to please the man.
Better use of the time. All right, good. I like these.
To get more focused on tasks.
Focus on task.
Kitty!
Couple of
Eliminates
others?
distractions.
The woodchucks that are all living
To
in my
be more
backyard.
creative. My home space, I haven't made a lot of decisions, and they're all around the floor.
Yes.
Yeah. Other things.
I'd love to be able to go horseback riding.
Almost everybody here has a job outside of the fellowship somewhere. They have day work, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's the hard, that's what we have to eliminate.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Okay, what's the comment? Sue?
Yep. Finding I don't have time to do everything that I want to do or need to do.
Don't have time to do, I love it when they believe those myths.
And that's the thing, is there's want to do's and there's need to do's, and it's like,
Which one do you pick?
which one do you pick? How do you, like,
Want to do.
and how do you not get overwhelmed? And then just,
Yeah, that's my biggest thing. How do you not get overwhelmed?
because then when that happens, it gets ugly.
But then
So you
also
kick the tables over. and-
Learning discernment and when to say no.
Just gets bad.
That's interesting phraseology.
Okay, let's put finding more time to spend with God
Yeah.
and doing things God wants.
Yeah.
Wow, there you go.
Making better use of my time with God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stupid woodchucks.
I want to go back to this. You notice what she said was when to say no, not how to say no. There's a difference. We struggle with both,
Right.
but that's one of the major things that I hope you see coming out of this, is that too many times we give away our choices. It's like signing all the checks in your checkbook, giving them to somebody and saying, you fill in the numbers.
Yeah.
When you let them take over your choices.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
So I quit my full-time job last year to pursue my career, but I
Right.
feel like I'm not, like I procrastinate a lot because I'm afraid, I think, so I don't know how to really use my time as to try to get going on this. Like I was really gung-ho for the first few months and then, like there's the time, like the time I knew it, it was
Yeah.
like 5 o'clock and I'm like, what did I do today?
I'm not out of my pajamas yet.
So I don't know, like, that's what's, because I worked in a very
Yeah.
high stress job
Right.
where everything was very organized and efficient and, every second counted, so now I'm like, I don't know what to do with
Yeah.
all this time and I have so much that I need to do, so I don't know how to manage it, I guess, I
Right.
don't know.
Prioritize.
Yeah,
What to do when.
I want to be less of a responder and more of an initiator. Because I have so many ideas, but I seem to be more available to participate, to request rather than,
Yeah, I think this is the pyrotechnic management, firefighting. That's what they call it, pyrotechnic management. I respond to all the stuff, put out all these little fires,
and I'm
all
tired
these
of
little
that.
crises.
I mean,
And at the end of the day, if I really looked, I would probably have noticed I started most of those fires. Yeah. I had a guy that I worked with, his name was Ray, out in Minneapolis. I flew out to Minneapolis, he and I were going to pay a fairly substantial claim the next day. We needed to review the file. He had set the entire day aside to work with me. And first thing he tells me is, he says, I need an assistant. Let's talk about getting me an assistant. And I go, well, why do you need an assistant? He said, I don't have the time. I am so busy. And I knew what his workload was compared to everybody else, and it was fairly normal. It was not a high workload. So I watched him. When we're supposed to be working on this file, he gets a phone call. It's an agent asking him about another closed case, and so he says, okay, I'll call you back. He gets up, leaves me, starts across the room to where they keep the old files. And I swear this is exactly what happened. I'm not exaggerating. Somebody stopped him about halfway over. They said, Brady, you want to get into the football pool? He says, oh, yeah, sure. Let me throw a couple of bucks in, so he's there. And then somebody else says, hey, it's Mike's birthday. You want a piece of birthday cake? So I'm watching him wander he never gets to the filing cabinet. Finally gets back to me about noon after a coffee break and some other stuff. And he goes, yeah, see how busy I am. At the end of the day, we never got to the file, and he never called the first guy back, and 4 more had called, and he made the same kinds of promises. So I'm busy writing this down, and I tell him at the end of the day, here's what I watched. Now, here's what I saw. All day long, you made choices about getting in the pool, drinking coffee, eating birthday cake, never got back to your original tasks. I think you have a time management issue, not necessarily a people issue.
I forget. I'll go into the room. I forgot what I went into the room for. I forgot
I'm
somebody
older
to
than
call.
you,
I
and I
forgot.
do that.
I forgot to call somebody back.
Yeah,
And I forget. What do you do about that?
yeah.
Help me.
Those will be some of the things we'll talk about next week. Maybe more vitamins.
I have my
Don't
list
get
for
older.
VJs tomorrow because I can't remember anything that I have
To-do
to.
lists.
I forget the list.
How about, are there other things? I know this is a big one. This was a big one for me as well.
What's that, procrastination?
No, I do that. I belong to PA.
yeah, me too.
Hi, I'm a procrastinator.
anonymous.
We were gonna get together tomorrow.
My mother did.
There is a club.
Somebody
Yeah, there
touched
is.
on the initiate. To me,
Initiate versus respond.
self-motivation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
when there's nobody
Yeah.
making sure that
Yes.
you're on task.
And that's why it was hard for me, because I had to be responsible for myself there.
Yeah.
Like, I had somebody to answer to, and now I don't. It's like me. It's like, oh no, what
Yeah.
are you
Right.
doing?
There's nobody watching over my
Right,
shoulder
right.
anymore. I don't have to punch the time clock.
I had to do an honest inventory of that,
Yeah.
and I have to value what God put inside of me
Yeah.
to make it a priority. Because I valued other people
Right.
and their time more, but that's wrong.
Yeah.
I like to do things with other people instead of by myself.
I don't get any.
Yeah, we're gonna look at that.
I don't get anything done. I I don't get anything done with other people.
Yeah,
I like to work alone.
I like to work alone.
that could be a big one, and we'll talk more about that as we're moving on a
I
little
like
bit
to be
further
with other
on.
people, I just don't get.
Other things, anything in
Unless they talk.
specific, because you got some good stuff up here. And these are the common kinds of things that I hear in business and in churches and other places.
When I worked at Minson Hulk,
Yeah, I know, I was gonna mention them,
Of the timesheet offenders,
right,
and we were called into a meeting, and we thought we were gonna be fired.
yeah,
And they fed us lunch, and they said that we were overachievers, and we thought it was downtime to record our time.
right,
So there's a misunderstanding of what is of value,
right,
like to invest time in.
yeah,
Isn't it true? It trips you up.
right. Sometimes it doesn't look like there's a value to the task, so sometimes we let it go. I worked with some people that they were having trouble getting people to respond to requests for hiring. They would send out all the paperwork and it would sit there for 2 or 3 weeks and people wouldn't respond. And it would just pile up. And finally, what they did is they went and said, what do you think happens when you don't respond, when you don't approve these things or you don't respond to them? And people said, we have no idea. We just didn't see it as having any kind of an impact at all. And finally, that little conversation, that little question, made the big change in a lot of people, because now they began to see what the value of the task was. What it was people weren't getting hired. And the ones that they wanted to put on the payroll, they couldn't. And then suddenly they were blaming everybody else. And they didn't see the value of signing that piece of paper. Something little like that.
I'd like to be more organized.
More organized? Are you organized now?
No?
Okay.
That was a big no.
I don't know, I think you are, I think you,
Yeah.
I think you are, and I think
I
you
am?
just think that you should be more.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
need to
see
be
how
more
you
organized.
organize. Yeah, she's, and she does an awesome job, like, I don't know,
Right.
I don't know.
It may be that you
expect
just
more
organize
from
and expect more. You're organized here,
She's a slave driver.
you're organized at
know,
your,
gotta do it.
at your business, but maybe when it comes to home life,
Yeah, you open the closet door and everything falls out.
you're not so organized, or as
Working on it.
organized as you are in other places.
Me?
I think sometimes the issue is not getting organized, it's staying organized.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes it's staying organized, yeah. Once a year, I'll reorganize everything, and it's good for, what, maybe a week? A year later, I'll do it again.
I want to go horseback riding.
Uh,
You guys.
I
Stan
think
asked.
if someone's very successful,
Right,
there would be no joy. It's kind of perceived as a burden or work, because I would tell my kids I have to go to work and I'm an artist.
right.
Like, oh, it's work.
It's work.
It's how it's perceived, there's no joy.
Okay, I want to find a different work. It's a job versus work.
Yeah.
Because work is something, is also something God gave us. You talk about the work. The job, I think, is the stuff.
Joyless.
Do my job if I wasn't going there, that I know I work
I
for
loved
that.
what I did, I just.
I
didn't
told
like
my
where I
boss,
worked.
you know, you give me my paycheck, but I work
This
for
is,
that.
since it came up, let me jump you to another page here real quick. We're going to look at page 8. There's a tale of two brick masons. It's a popular story. It's been around quite a bit over the years. Just have a look at that. We'll come back to this page, but I thought, since you mentioned the difference between a job and work, here's an example of it. Yeah, that's exactly it. And sometimes what it is you remember Brother Lawrence? Brother Lawrence saw all of his work as unto the Lord.
Yeah.
He never saw it as a job.
Yeah.
And, I've worked with people who had jobs and they were laying bricks.
Right.
And I had people who worked on projects that I worked on and they were building cathedrals. for the glory of God. The difference is in how they saw things.
Perception,
It was all in the perception. And that's part of what I want to stress tonight is encouraging you to begin to see all of this stuff a little bit differently. Think about time a little bit differently. Any others on there? Anything else you want to add to that? Take away? What would you say if you had to pick three of them, what would it be? Up here.
Concentrate on.
Yeah, what would be the top three things that you think would be?
Prioritizing. More God.
Prioritizing?
More God
That's
time.
right. What else?
More God time.
More God time?
Maybe value.
Yeah.
Better use of time.
This one?
Value of task.
Value of task or value of others
How
more
would
than
you
me?
say that,
I think
value?
prioritizing includes value.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll
That's
lump that
good.
together. Not a big deal.
Self-motivating.
Well, with initiate versus respond.
Yeah, some of that's gonna come out very naturally anyhow.
Focusing on the task.
Yeah, that might be one too. Where is that?
Is productivity a thing?
Focus on
Productivity, I
tasks.
think I don't think I spelled it out that way.
Or how about more
Three down
creative?
from prioritizing.
What that one down here? Better use of the time?
Focus on the task.
Focus
I
on
thought
the
you wanted
tasks,
to
all right,
say.
all right.
I don't know.
I think you'll find that these are probably the big ones. We want more time with God. We'd like to be able to prioritize the stuff. I had a guy working for me one time and was in charge of the claims department. And he was saying, claims are supposed to be a priority, everything else gets secondary, and they're supposed to take care of these investigations first. And he says, but I can't get priorities set. He said, can you help me do that? And I go, yeah, I can do that. I get your paycheck, though. He goes, well, what do you mean? I said, I'm paying you to prioritize in the moment. There are only guidelines. There are no hard, fast rules. You're going to have to shuck and jive in the moment. That's what he didn't want. He said, if it's this, then it's that. If it's this, then it's that. I go, that's not the way life is. You got to come back and look at what's going on in the moment and begin to start thinking about some of the trade-offs. So that was one of the responsibilities. All right, I'm trying to figure out, where did I set my phone?
Under your paper,
That's probably where it is.
or mine usually is.
Because I am going to erase this, but I'm going to make a copy of it first. Because I'm going to use this for some of the stuff next week. Let me see. Chris, was there anything else from Super Sharon? Okay. Got yours in there too, so we'll take care of it. Who, you got two more viewers? I have a picture of the floor now too.
Nice.
The thing that I hear people say, and I do it too, is, and I know, and even I say what I know the outcome is going to be, and that's not true. I really don't know if I change what the outcome is going to be like if I change.
Uh-huh.
That's a part of the stopping or procrastinating, where you
Yeah.
think you know the outcome or it's not worth it, or talk yourself out of something.
It's like I used to tell people when I was working with a new client, and he was being very reluctant, very resistant to something I had asked about doing. So I used the technique I'd learned to get him to talk about what was bothering him. And at one point, you keep quiet. You stop talking and you say, like something like, what are your concerns about this? And you keep quiet. I'm sitting there and I'm quiet, and I'm going, it's the first time I ever met him. And I go, uh-oh, he's quiet too. He hates this. He hates me. I'm never going to get this work. I'm never going to get another job. That means I'm going to lose my house. Chris and the kids will move away. She'll divorce me.
Am I really saved?
No, I didn't go there. But I was ending up homeless on the streets of New York. This all took place. Yeah, I'm always homeless on the streets of New York. In that town. But this occurs to you. We project these huge fantasies. Now, I'll tell you, the time lapse was 2 heartbeats. And he said, I have some real concerns about it, and then we went on to talk about what his issues were, and we agreed afterwards that we'd still do some stuff. But here I am, I'm in a panic, I'm sweating, and he doesn't know that. I'm trying to keep a straight face. But we have this tendency to project all these meat, and guess who is sitting on our shoulder feeding us this junk?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Got a little enemy there saying, you know, you're gonna lose your house.
that's beautiful.
Your wife's gonna take the kids and leave you. You're gonna be homeless in New York. And I go, not New York! Albany maybe, but not New York. But that's what happens to us, is that we get sort of sucked into that kind of stuff. I had mentioned before on page 3 that God gave us the gift of time. There are two sets of scriptures in there that I really like. And since Genesis 1:1 is the very beginning, I thought, what a place to start. And right off the bat, what do we got? He's giving us the directions in Genesis there for what he has created for us when he said, hey, I want you to take dominion of this place. He created the heavens and the earth. He said, let there be lights in the sky. He separated the day from the night. One was evening, one was morning, it was the fourth day. He prescribed time. Now, we've done a lot with measuring it and all the other stuff over the years with what the scientists have done, but that's where it came from. God gave us this gift we call time. And we are temporal beings. We live from here to here. Yeah, we have a span. And then, of course, Ecclesiastics, good old Solomon, talking about this. And I've always liked this one. I even like the song better. You remember the song by the Birds, Turn, Turn, Turn? Yeah. But, you know, when you look at that, I'm not going to go through all of those, but what you see in here is almost like the counterpoint. There's a time to heal. There's a time to kill, a time to be born, a time to die. All of these times, a time to love, a time to hate. He goes on and on through that. But this is what God gave us, is he gave us this time. Now, on the next page, this is something else I'd like you to talk about, the subject of stewardship with regard to time. I've given you a couple of scriptures here, one out of Luke. He's talking about the wise and faithful steward. He's ready when the master comes home and finds him doing what he's supposed to be doing. And the other one's about hospitality, ministering to each other with the grace of God. And the whole subject is about stewardship and being stewards. How do you think the idea, because, you know, originally I never thought about stewardship and time as having any relationship. But now if we look at time as a gift from God, and we go, God gave me this.
Wow.
And Gene, what does Joe say about your house? That you can repeat. What's he say?
Oh boy, he needs a lot of work.
No, every time you talk to Joe, he talks about being the steward of the land and the house. He doesn't, I don't own it, I am just the steward.
We're just the steward.
We're just the stewards of the house. To me, the stewardship of the property was sort of an easy one to see. I never thought about it in terms of the time that he's given me. So at your table, spend a couple of minutes and just ask yourself, how does this idea of stewardship relate to the concepts of time? I have 24 hours in a day. How does stewardship relate to that? If you want a definition of stewardship, there was the classic one there. It's about being responsible, being accountable for something that's been given to you. You're conducting, supervising, all the other stuff. It's been entrusted to your care. Something has been entrusted to your care by someone else. So when you think about God's gift, think about stewardship, how do you see the two relating? Take a couple minutes, kick that around, and we'll capture some of that.
That's what I use at work. I like to tell
Are you
them.
a union?
Yeah.
Union steward, yeah.
But actually, I first started.
Did it, really?
Misplaced in your
It's
mouth?
the worst.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
But what I like to say is, we have, all these guys that drive different trucks and pieces of equipment. One of the things I like to tell them is that we are stewards of equipment. It's owned by the taxpayers. We don't own it. It's not your truck. It's not my tractor. We are, we're given these positions. We're told to steward. We're going to take care of it.
But at the same
charged
time,
with
that's
that.
once you
So
rest.
it kind of gives them something to think about, that it's just not something you go out and snow with, bounce off the curbs.
Just not a brick.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's true, like with everything else, like your marriage, you're a steward of your marriage, when you're a parent, you're a steward of your kids.
It does.
Yeah.
That's good.
But it's
Don't
still
own 'em.
used.
Yeah.
She could be
It's good to
sleeping instead of.
screw them up for about 18 years, and then you get to go out on
Okay.
it.
But
And then some,
I think there's gonna be a lot of community because
that's good.
she's sensitive and she sees a lot of needs.
But this for me was a fairly substantial shift in how I saw time. And that began to affect my thinking about procrastinating. Not a lot, but I still do it from time to time. But it is, begin to see a shift in my thinking.
The thing, and in fact, what you were sharing, and what generally comes to mind is things that we have, relationships we have, that we're stewards of them. But when it flips to time, because it's a little different. It's like I'm a steward of time, not just these things I have. That the time itself is what I've been entrusted with to do the best possible thing using this time, utilizing this time. That's a little different. That is that's a paradigm shift for sure.
Yeah, it is. It was for me. A big one for me.
Yeah, because even our relationships, I mean, we can, I gotta spend like all this time in this relationships and these relationships when it's like, okay, if the time that is spending time with people in the relationships is a quality type of time where it's like, it doesn't have to, you can still get together and be with somebody, even minister to somebody. It doesn't have to be for 6 hours. It could be for an hour, and utilizing that time to, that's one of the, another area where I have a hard time getting together, inviting people over to my house, anything like that, is a hard time. So it's like, I'm not even able to steward my relationships because I'm not either, making the invite, or I have so much, and everything's a disaster, and everything's all over the place, and I have to run here and here and here, that I'm not stewarding my time. But, it doesn't have to be a ton of time to do things either, and that's,
You know, when he was talking earlier, and actually one thing that, with the time, is in prioritizing, the verse that came to my mind when he was talking about was Matthew 6:33. That says, seek first the kingdom.
yeah.
That's the priority.
Here's another one to knock around for a couple minutes. Should we tithe our time?
When we value that, or prioritize.
Think about that one for a couple minutes.
It does help to start off thankful too in the morning. Be thankful
Sure.
for everything, and then go
Start off
from,
at 2 in the morning.
start off.
Yeah.
Well,
Don't you?
Well, sometimes it is that too. I don't know. It depends on when he wakes up. Sometimes it is that too.
Yeah.
But-
As you're, go ahead.
No, but it's true, because if you, like, I know I do, like, want more time, just alone time, quiet time,
Right.
just sitting, like, because I love music, but it is distracting, so that's kind of taken away from his time, but I, like, and then I say, oh, okay, I'm gonna wake up, at 4 or 6 or whatever, and I'm gonna spend 2 hours with you, and that never happens, because it's 6, and I'm like, oh, I just fell asleep like 3 hours ago.
Yeah, so-
So, like, it's just being irresponsible,
Right.
I'm not being a good steward, I'm being lazy.
It's kind of neat that you say that, because one of my good friends, probably like one of the most efficient and, like, level person that I know, very successful too.
As far as I'm concerned, it's giving.
Gets up in the morning and starts his day,
Two little kids that are
spending
watching
like over
That's a lot.
an hour, 2 hours, it depends.
Out of
Mhm.
the house to
Yeah, with
to
God.
try to get,
And he'll basically ask him, Lord, what do you want to do today?
he wants
Yep.
it to be.
Yeah.
He won't buy, if he needs a new car or he wants to buy a boat, he'll say, Lord, I'd like to get a sailboat.
Right.
You think I can get a
But mostly
sailboat?
we're
and he'll wait. I mean,
Right.
Trying to make it to
and it
where
could be months, it could be a year.
we could use it as what God wants us to use
He
it.
does, even in his business, you know, he goes into work, he writes all sorts of graph charts and everything else, and he sits there and he'll have discussions with the Lord, and he really hears,
Right.
really
Right.
super good.
Yeah.
And he's got like 3 or 4 different businesses,
Yeah,
and
How about you guys?
the name of his business starts with the Lord.
yeah,
It's pretty interesting.
that's neat, that's neat. I remember Bob Jones talking one time about, he said, he's sitting there, he says, Lord, what should we watch on TV tonight? And it was a fishing show.
Bear, bring away that be a bear.
Yep.
What, I asked them one other question. What do you think about tithing? This is something.
Tithing your time.
Tithing your time,
Right.
2.4 hours a day.
That I've heard before.
I've heard that.
Just you,
Yeah, I've
sort of
heard
kick that around for a minute, then we'll come back to you.
That's really good.
Well,
Time,
my thing with,
family,
you know,
talents.
especially like now that Jonathan's back in school, but even when I'm getting up at 6 or 6:30 in the morning, I'll spend an hour and a half with the Lord. But it just seems to be so scattered or all loose, you know. I mean, we've been talking about this since, you know, I was a year old in the Lord. It's just like 5 minutes, just, you know.
Yeah, that's great.
So now it's like, okay, well, should I be reading my Bible? Should I have music on? Should I just be sitting with you, Lord? What do I do? And there, an hour and a half goes by, and I want better quality time with my papa, you know? And that's, you know,
Carol's really good at it. She'll just get up and she'll just say, okay, what do you want me to do? She'll just open her Bible wherever it opens up. She'll
No,
just
was there any more messages?
And then she's got, actually, like a book, and she'll write it, what she's thinking about.
Like a journal.
You know, Nick is on my mind today.
Yeah.
You know, Lord, I just pray blessings on him. You know, she'll
Would you
just-
tithe, would you tithe your papa?
And sometimes the Holy Spirit is good. And, you know,
You get down to the really tough stuff.
Monday morning, go on to and other days it might just go for a half an hour.
right.
But,
Well,
I
I
find
just only
that
want
it's like,
stay
you know, she tells me,
I
it's
know
more
those
like that.
Yeah, but you have to be at work at what time? I have to be to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, so I usually, with the Lord, you know, have my quiet time with the Lord till 7:30, from 6 to 7:30. And now, actually now Jonathan's in school, it's usually from 6:30 to 7:30, because he's busy and up and everything, so. And sometimes it'll go late, and I'll just be like, okay, quick, shower, go, hurry up. You know, I cut back, I stop doing my hair, just do my bangs, and, you know, I don't put as much makeup on, cutting back on stuff. I don't know.
That's good though.
But
I got
it just-
kind of a warm drive, so sometimes I just try to talk to him in the car.
Well, that's the other thing, it's like, we're with him all day long.
Yeah, that's so funny, Mike, I just wrote.
I forget that I'm with him all day long,
Supposed to get- That's what
but,
tithe is, it's not
The other
the,
thing
it's not
Carol
the
does
last
is
10%
she'll,
that we
she'll
save
put
that's
on the
left over.
passenger seat.
Right.
It's 10% first.
yeah,
First.
yeah.
So, and I'm not good at
She'll
it.
actually make
I've been working
actual
towards
allocated
that.
space.
Give him the first
And then she'll
portion,
just talk to him.
and then,
What you
That's
did.
awesome, right.
you know, my
And I
prayer
turned
is
off
that
my
my
radio
time
in
is
my car like
more
3 years
productive
ago.
afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, not
I
all,
got
you know,
so
that's
used
not
to
the
it.
reason.
Then,
why.
of course, I was without a
That
car
would be
for
a
a
nice
year, and I had to
byproduct.
listen to my daughter's
It
music.
is, it's true,
To boom music all the way to work every day, but on my own,
We
you
try to
know.
keep them, you know,
I just,
wake up.
even at home, I
spend
don't
time
watch
with God.
TV, I just like quiet.
Personally,
I like to be able to.
and then it'll translate to more time.
Yeah, I think,
More energy
I found that I
throughout the
like it more quiet. I went out with my daughter last weekend, and that radio's got to be on all the time. And then she's yelling over it.
And then sometimes I feel guilty, I'm like, I should, I have
feel
so
like
many
later
worship
on,
songs
like,
and worship things, and I should
Later
play
in
them
the afternoon.
and play worship music, you know, and then I'm like, I should, but it's okay.
I got caught
Relax, you know.
I stopped like 3 years ago or something like that and just had quiet in the car. And then just recently, I'm like, you know what? Play
All right,
some-
let me drag you back
something,
together for a
you know?
second.
But I think later in the
I'm
afternoon,
curious about
I
this
need
stewarding.
more quiet time.
How did that impact you? What kind of thoughts did you have about the concept of looking at stewarding your time?
I do think that, you know, putting God first thing in the morning. I know that people say that, you know, well, whatever's the best time for you in the day is the best time. You know, you want to give God your best.
Right.
And my best time is not in the morning. However, I just think that it's just so crucial to spend, even if it's not my best, with him. I don't think that he really cares, you know, but I'm with him.
Yeah.
And what I was gonna say is like later, it seems like later on in the day, after I come home and I need to make another, you know, time in my day to just, okay, close everybody out and just get alone with God again, like
Yeah.
halfway through my day.
Let me tell you something that's going to happen in the conversations that you're having, because I've heard them already. You're going to begin to hear tips and ideas from people around the room. Dwight, you had a couple there with the people that did these things. And as you hear, creativity is the art of hiding your resources. As you hear these tips and something speaks to you, jot it down. That's part of the reason that we have the conversations, is you will get some ideas from somebody else. You'll get promptings when you hear the idea, ooh, that sounds like something. Let the Lord touch you when you hear an idea, because, you know, to try to write them all down and try to do them all is back to being overwhelmed.
And I think that works in with being a steward of
It does.
time, because even when you're out, like, you know, you leave work, you
Right.
got, you gotta go to the market, you know, gotta get home. So you might, like, hear a prompting to say something or even smile at somebody, and you're like, oh, I don't have time for this. I don't
Magic phrase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, like, what do you mean, you don't have time for God first? Like, he wanted you to do that,
Yeah.
so that's, to me, being a good steward of your
Right.
time too, because you're disciplined enough to know when,
Exactly.
you know, because it's his time, really, so if you say, I
You
don't have
give
enough
to-
time to, you know, to give that guy a word, or, you know, whatever, like, all right, I'll give you an example today, I was at the store, actually, that's why I thought of this, and the guy in front of me his card wasn't working, so he had to put his stuff back, so I'm like, all right, I'll get it for him. So I told the lady, I'm like, here, just put it with my stuff, let me go run out. And she was like, I can't let you leave the store. I'm like, here's my card, like, but he's
I'll
gonna,
do that,
like,
yeah.
leave, like, he's going, like, you know, I don't have time for this, I was saying to her, so I felt myself getting, like, anxious, like, oh, what if he leaves? And then I was like, all right, God, all right.
Bring him back.
So, like, I really didn't have time to wait for her, and to even do this for this guy,
Yeah.
because I had to, you know, had to go make dinner, come here, and this and that,
Yeah.
but I had to chase him, he went into another store in the plaza, but, like, I could have easily said, whatever, I don't care,
It's too
like,
late.
I don't
Yeah,
have
it's
time,
too
yeah,
late.
it's too
I don't
late,
have
you
the
already walked
time.
out of the store,
Yeah.
but, I don't know, she was annoyed with me, because I was like, all right, hurry up then, hurry up.
I find it hard to buy stuff for people in this store. There was somebody they were in a real rush. I let them go ahead of me, and I just told the cashier, I said, "You bundle it all together, I'll take care of it." It wasn't much. Yeah, no, I can't let you do that. Oh, yeah, sure, it's not a big deal. I'll pay for this. Yeah. Okay, fine. I'm not gonna argue with it.
Well, that was
Lord,
like
I
you.
tried, you speak to
Like when I went in
Your
there,
children
I
are
gave it to
driving
him
me
too. He
nuts.
was like, no. I'm like, no, you already paid for it. Don't argue with me. I'm like, I'm gonna go. God
We're gonna
bless you.
take this and like it in the name of the Lord.
Yeah, you could see like the pride, like was, and I'm like, it's really
Oh,
okay, you know.
It's tough.
It's not for me
Very tough.
anyway. He's like, what? I'm like, it's from God.
Yeah. Oh, you're one of those.
Yeah, no, he gave me a hug anyway. He was like,
That's good. That's good. Other thoughts on the stewardship?
because it's all about God.
You know, one of the things for me, because in our group, one of the things that came up had to do with, because you brought up the end of tithing time and time with the Lord. As a young man, I mean, I'd read all these revivalists, and
Yeah.
I spent 3, 4, 5 hours praying, and I learned, you know, I'd get up way early. I learned that I could fall asleep standing up. It didn't matter. You know, I just learned there was not a whole lot that was really occurring with it.
Sleep with my eyes open.
But it was the matter of just diligently doing what I knew to
Yeah.
do and just studying. And eventually in my life, because to me, and actually I feel this way about tithing too, so forgive me. But, a tithe is a good place to start.
To start.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's really how I feel about it.
right.
And so
That's good.
when I think of tithing, I go, really what I want is I want a full-time relationship.
Mhm.
And where Paul says, I pray in tongues more than all of you,
Right.
I do this, and that dude was pretty busy.
Yeah.
You know, he was in shipwrecks, he was in everything,
That's right.
but yet he's experienced, so his relationship wasn't delegated to a certain portion
Right.
of the time of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I found out was that sometimes people will actually be pretty mean if they don't get that time because they feel like if they don't have it, they're exempt from being a Christian. You know, it's really,
That's
and
good.
so it's almost like I have to have this. Like, you got Jesus in you.
Yeah.
You
Talk
can
to
do
them,
that,
too,
and
right.
it's funny because I've done the same thing. At times I'm riding in the car and I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm in relationship with him.
Yeah.
I'm talking with him. You know, it's a relationship. It's a long-term
Right.
relationship.
Right.
That's what I liked about
Yeah.
Brother Lawrence.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
whatever he was doing.
Whatever we're doing.
Washing the dishes, he had time communing, talking. And the friend you were talking about, had the graphs on the wall, asking, what do you think? What do we do with these things?
Yeah.
Great counselor as well, great counselor as well.
It's like what JC said when he was preaching, I watched the video
Yeah.
about, oh yeah, what if you have to tell your wife that you just need to, I need more discipline to spend time with you, be more disciplined. to spend time
Yeah.
with you." How well is that gonna go, you know?
Yeah. If I can ask Chris, how did it go when I said that to you? I need to be more disciplined to
I
spend time
really
with
love you, but I'm just not disciplined
I love
enough
you
to
in the
spend
Lord.
time with you, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Jack Deere, one of my favorite teachers, I remember one time was talking about prayer and his prayer life. And he was trying to set aside 20 minutes, and he would be doing this.
Yeah.
So loving.
And one day the Lord said, "Are you bored?" Talking about getting caught up short. Yeah, but it was, "Are you bored? Do you have somewhere to go that's more important?" You know, little promptings. You know. So he began to realize he was treating it as a task,
Yes.
as a job, not as what I'm calling work,
Relationship.
not the part of the relationship. If you go over to the next page, one of the concepts I want you to understand is that I view the time management as a stewardship issue. We have been given this gift. We have 24 hours in the day. We have 7 days in the week. We have 52 weeks in the year. That's a gift God gave us, and part of our job is to steward that time. Now, this is the focus of where we're going over today and tomorrow. Today and tomorrow. If anybody come back tomorrow night? I won't be here either next week. The idea is to begin to see that time is a gift from God. That's one of the things I want to stress. Recognize that we are stewards of that time, and that those two things can begin to shift the way we look at the work before us and all of the stuff we have to do. It can begin to shift the conversations we have with people. It can begin to shift how we make our choices. And then the last one is today we're going to take a look at examining the choices we make in terms of the time that we have and how we go about that. Over the next week, at the very back are 2 time logs. And they're fairly general, but I'll give you more instructions on those. But one of the every program has a piece of it that says if you're going to move from here to there, you got to know where you are. Where are you starting from? If you're going to have any kind of a plan for anything, you got to deal with where am I? So this is to help you sort of organize what your time is, or take a look at, not organize it yet, but take a look at where am I spending my time. As an example, Dwight, how much do you commute a day?
I don't know, about 26 miles each way.
Okay, so that's what, about 40 minutes?
40 minutes.
Good traffic?
Yep.
So that's, when you add those together, that's 80 minutes, it's almost an hour and a half
Correct.
in the car, commuting. Most people, when they think about their workday, do not include that. They just think of that, well, I'm there 8 to 5. No, I had to leave home at 6:30, and I didn't get home till 6:30, so that's 12 hours of going. That's half the day. That's half the day. So what these two forms are intended to do is help you take a picture, a snapshot in time. How am I spending my time? And from that, next week, what we'll do is take a look at where you are. And if you don't get the entire week filled out, that's okay. You'll begin to see patterns right off the bat. And what we're going to do is look at some things. Next week will be about the strategies. This will be more tips and things like that. Some of this stuff to actually help you once you've made the decisions of what you want to do, how to prioritize that stuff, and then how to make commitments to those priorities. Some tools in developing your own plan. Page 6 is interesting. This came out of Stephen Covey. Any of you ever read any of Stephen Covey stuff? Yeah, Stephen's been around for a good number of years.
I have time to read.
Yes, I know.
He's not there.
Yeah, he's passed. His son's, Stephen R., has sort of picked up the mantle. His company merged with Franklin Planners. They're now Franklin Covey. And one of the old masters at changing habits was Ben Franklin. He wrote something in his autobiography. I'll give you a copy of it next week, about 12 ways to master time and literally change your habits, how you do things. But these were the sort of the common approaches. I'm going to get myself organized. You know, I heard that. I'm going to organize the tasks, whatever I've got to do. And we've got some of these people that teach the time management from a warrior. I love that one, a warrior standpoint. Guard my time. It's going to be me only, and I want to be alone. Leave me alone. There's always the goal setting, the ABC priorities. Dwight, I heard, was it you that was talking about? I'll get a lot of this little stuff out of the way and then tackle the big ones. Yeah, it's doing the C priorities before the A's. Yeah. That's always a good one. Then the magic tools. I had a friend years ago that he got into time management. He was with me when we went to McKenzie's, Alex McKenzie's. And he had a day timer. He had 3x5 cards. He had a calendar on the wall. He had a little Post-it note. Yeah, I think they had Post-it notes in those days. He had little Post-it notes or something like them. Anyhow, he wouldn't enter it in one place. He literally had to enter it in 5 places.
Isn't that OCD?
Yeah, I think he was.
That's
I think he
OCD.
was.
I have to
Well,
say,
what
I
was
don't
funny
ever
was the
want
day
to
that, you know, the windows in the building opened,
Oh, no.
and a breeze came in and blew it all off the desk and all over the place, and he was there, I didn't know what to do. But some people believe that if I have the right tools,
Yeah.
that will do it.
Was it Franklin Covey that has a time,
Yeah.
like a time,
Right.
is that what it is? Day
Yeah,
runner or
Franklin
something?
Planners and
Okay,
Stephen Covey, that's now called Franklin Covey.
okay.
They merged, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, before Stephen died, you know, and they do a lot with time management as well.
I had
Yeah.
them, took their classes.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of theirs is some of the stuff that's up in the top. How to get organized, buy our planner, and that'll do it for you. And there's all these things that you do with it. I like the other ones. If I understand the management cycle, what happens in management in general, it's almost like project management. The next two are really favorite. It's the biorhythms. I'm going to plot. You said I'm not a morning person. Yeah, what was it, larks and owls or swallows and owls? Some people work better at the end of the day than they do at the beginning. And that's the rhythms. So the whole approach was, if you can find your rhythm, do your stuff in your rhythm.
It's good.
It may work.
Biorhythm, yeah.
Yeah.
My God, that stuff is.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Jamaican rhythm.
Jamaican rhythm, yeah. Get the drums out. I discovered, last weekend, Carly and Michael got married, and they were teaching the dancing in here, and I discovered I'd lost my rhythm somewhere over the years. My feet failed to cooperate whatsoever. It was like I had two left ones on the right side.
I need recovery.
Yeah, and the other one is recovery, and this is like TA, or PA, Procrastinators Anonymous. Hi, I'm Charlie, I procrastinate. It's been 6 weeks since I did anything on time. I joined a procrastinators club once. Their last meeting was in 1965. Things like that, you can find those out there. But these are the typical approaches that you see. They are okay, they won't hurt you, but I think that to me, there is something below that that's more foundational. And one of the pieces is recognizing that God gave us time, the other one is recognizing I'm a steward, and then the next page, page 7, sort of gives you a picture of how I'm thinking about time these days and what I look at. If you just take a look at that, we'll kick that around. It's got a little bit about priorities in there too. Anybody need some water while I'm over that way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anybody need candy?
Tracy does, she needs some Reese's peanut butter cups.
She ate jeans.
I can think of.
And the guys aren't eating any.
We need some water. That's right. Pass it over.
Thank you, darling.
Oh, no, I'm gonna get that blow on the way out.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, I could refill my bottle.
Well, yeah, that's sweet.
You think it's going to be there when you leave,
I have
huh?
no idea what you're talking about.
If I eat a piece of candy now, I can't
You
see
guys
it.
haven't eaten anything, because I
Debbie wasn't chocolate, you have so much. More. I don't want to bring them more.
Oh, yeah, that's the problem.
we're cold. All that.
3 other
Just sitting there for
Shouldn't have. Take shopping for the smell of smackery moss.
Let me hit this page, and then we'll take a quick break.
I didn't think he started it.
I'm gonna try not to neglect.
The entire phrase "time management" to me is a myth. We really can't manage time because, you know, if you think of management as about you can plan it, organize it, influence, lead it, control it, whatever you want to put in there, I don't care which model you like to look at, it says that we can affect it. And I think as long as we believe that, we're believing a myth and we're believing a bit of a lie. Because this time, 1 second is a second, they're all the same, they just keep going. If you look down and it says we can't speed it up, have you ever been able to speed up time?
No.
Never been able to slow it down either.
They can't slow it down? Yeah.
Tried it.
You remember that was it Jim Croce song, If I Could Save Time in a Bottle?
Oh, yeah.
Tried that once, didn't work. The bottle just sat there, I didn't get any more time out of it. You look at it, you can't save it, you can't use it later. You can't add 1 second to the day, you can't take 1 second away. So if it's that steady and that constant, it's come from God. Now, if God wants to affect it, he can. I've seen that happen.
Yep.
I've seen that happen.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If God wants to affect it, he can, but we can't touch it.
I've seen
So we can't manage time by itself, but what we can manage, and that's the second part there, is how we use it. Those are the decisions that we make. See, these others seem to assume that we can manage the time. If we recognize that we cannot manage the time, but we can manage the decisions we make about how we use it, then that's something a little bit different. You can see this, it's done in here. See, the other thing God gave us was the freedom to choose.
Yeah.
We absolutely hate that, but he gave us the freedom to choose. I'm serious. I was in a meeting one time, and there was this guy complaining. He says, you know, this was a dinner. We were having a business dinner, and there was salad on the table, and there was an oil and vinegar dressing on the salad, and this guy starts a rant. He says, what do they think of us? You know, we can't even decide what salad we want. I make decisions every day. We do this, we do that. I spend thousands of dollars. I do this and that. I can't even decide which salad. He goes into this about a 10-minute rant. I'm sitting there watching him. I go, wow, something really touched him. He must not like oil and vinegar. Stay away from that stuff. So later on, he's into something, and he says, well, this is how I did that. And somebody says, well, why'd you do it that way? And he goes, oh, well, home office told me to. I go, well, so much for the decision maker. First chance he gave away, his choice to make a decision. We do have the freedom, and sometimes we hate the fact we have that freedom. It's tough to live with. In the moment choices is what we don't recognize in a lot of cases. Every moment is an opportunity to choose what we're going to do. Yeah, that's terrible. And the choices that we make reflect our commitments to things. I once had somebody throw this out as a challenge to a bunch of executives. I said, you've got a vision? They said, yeah. He says, don't tell anybody what it is. Live it out for a year and then ask them to write down what your vision is. Yeah. And most visions are all the same. They read very similarly. But that's one of the things, because are my actions reflecting what I believe in, what I'm committed to, not compliant with, but what I'm committed to, and my priorities?
Just like living a Christian life.
Yes, do the words and music line up? I love that one. And the thing is, you can prioritize your life, not just your work. I think one of the things I want to touch on next week is work-life balance. Anybody have to worry about that?
What is it?
Work-life balance. You get that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Work-life balance.
Transitioning from work to.
First thing I'm going to ask you to do is
there's no
change the
balance.
phrase to life-work balance. You know why? The first word is the priority word. First word is the priority word. And the priority, the sequence of what you're saying will impact how you see it. And if I'm looking at work-life, what's the most important to me? Well, work is first, life is second. So part of what I will encourage you to do is shift that thinking to life work. My life is most important and the work is a part of it. That's what God's given me to do. A lot of times we make decisions that just out of a routine habit are the choices that we make. You can use the word decision for every time you see the word choose in there.
So are habits and routines good or not good?
Depends.
Yes.
Yes. It depends. Some of them are good. When I was doing the menial tasks, routine paperwork, I could just get into the habit of reading these things and going through them quickly. That was good. Other habits that I have, like watching 24 hours a day of TV is not good.
You don't have that.
All right, it's 23.
Okay, let's get real.
That's what I gave up tonight. Now, what happens is this statement down here says, sadly, sometimes when we have time problems, we blame other things. I don't have the time is one of the most common phrases. That's another one I would encourage you to shift the way you look at that. I don't have the time. Really what has happened is I have chosen in this moment to do this thing and not that thing. That's what's really happened.
That's true.
I have made a choice. But because I didn't want to make that choice, that's what it says down there below. Because I didn't want to make that, it's easier to blame I don't have the time. The dog ate my homework, the computer ate my homework, whatever it happened to be. And a priority very simply says, I'm preferring to do this thing over this thing. It's of more importance than the other one. In this moment, that's the priority. And with that, before we jump into the key concepts, because they're sort of a summation of that, let's take a quick 5 minutes. Folks, we're going to go away for about 5 minutes. We're not going to play any music. Kim is going to sing. Grab some water.
Okay, while everybody is taking a little break, I just want to remind you a couple of programs that we have coming up for Life Academy. One is Place. This is Finding Your Place in Ministry. It's going to be held September 6th here from 10 to 3:30 p.m. There's a $25 charge. It's for the materials, and it includes lunch. I know it's an all-day thing, but especially if you just really feel, or you maybe know somebody that you'd like to extend the invitation to take part in that so they can get more clear on what God's call is in their life. And it's going to be taught by Maria Alzamora, and she has such passion for this. It's just wonderful to watch her in action.
So I came up with an idea.
If you are interested in attending, would you please email Charlie at clfields@rolcf.net. And September 1st is the last day to register because we have to order materials. The other event that's coming up for Life Academy is Loving Your Teenager on Purpose. This is going to be 2 nights, September 11th and 18th, and will be taught by Pastor Weston. Again, it's here at 7 p.m., and looks like there's some materials involved in that too, $25 for materials. I believe there's a book, and so if you're interested in that, you can contact Charlie again at clfields@rolcf.net, or if you see us here, you're here on a Sunday. And if you have friends that you know that might benefit from, that have teens and might benefit from this class, please let them know, pass the word around. Okay, thanks.
They were gonna photobomb me.
They were going to? Yeah?
I would have jumped in if they did.
They.
Various
Thought never crossed our mind.
Jane went, Monday, Jane went. Amanda's attitude gone. You said that? Yes. To the baby. To the baby? Do you know that the rest of the day, that baby did not even pee? Ask her.
It's not like I haven't tried this before, right? I'm big on these.
Eat this frog? Yeah. Which one? Oh, Brian Tracy, I know.
Brian Tracy, I'm big on Brian Tracy. Yeah, I've tried, getting things
Yeah,
done.
right.
Yep. David Allen,
Yep. Alan Lincoln.
Now Howard, yep. I'm really trying, but that's why I'm here.
Now you can add Charlie's to it.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Audiobook, I see the speaker in the living.
Sometimes I get in trouble is, oops, I'm online. If I'm trying to research something or.
So take about another minute and then we'll get back together.
It's like an omen. You're supposed to.
What is that?
Star Trek.
Oh. I thought it was like some foreign candy.
I was there for a little while, but then Sarah had an appointment.
My gum's on the floor.
But she comes and helps.
Thanks.
You mean after a while? After a while.
Yeah,
See, I'm not managing my time. I should
other
be.
it's like, how do you get people to do something I don't say What? Like, I don't want to do their thing.
Okay, now at least I know I can place one and I wanted to get.
Here's the oversimplified answer.
Just do it.
Just think about it.
She should be in this class. She's going to school
That's
Tuesday.
the oversimplified answer.
Yep, start putting Post-it notes. What I do is for the Lord. I have to start putting Post-it notes of what I'm supposed to be remembering.
That's why Brother Lawrence is so stuck with me, because when you read his letter,
Yes.
they were so simple. While he's working in the garden, while he's doing the dishes, while he's doing every dirty
Washing the
job
floor.
they gave him.
Yeah.
He didn't see this job, he saw this real. And that was different.
Right.
And that struck me. When you write those checks when you're paying your bills, you're doing this for the Lord. This is part of being this. Okay, 13 seconds, we're gonna come back together. 13. Well, a little bit less now.
So I chose to stay here and visit.
All right. For those of you who are online, we're going to pick this up on page 8. It's called The Key Concepts. So hang in there with us. If you've got anything else you want, I see something written up there. Oh, ask your.
How am I feeling?
All right.
Dude, that was fine. Are you kidding?
See, I want to approach the whole idea, like this week is about the concept of time, and sort of rethinking how we see it. I'll say it again, in page 8 is some of the stuff that I've put together, I've found from other places, but I think it all fits together. the first concept is recognizing that we don't control time. That to me was a big one. Once I began to recognize that, Adrian had the same number of minutes in the day that I did.
Yes.
She didn't have more, that's how she got stuff done. I didn't have fewer, that's why I didn't get it done. It was the same amount. And when I began to realize that that's what we had, it began to shift the way I was thinking. And I think if you want to make long-lasting changes, you've got to begin to shift how you're seeing things. Think a little bit differently about some of the stuff. The other one was, as I began to recognize, I can make some decisions about how I'm using my time. Now, part of that, and we'll talk about this a little bit next week as well, is we may have to change some of the conversations we have with people. What we talked to them about it was somebody said, when do I say no? How do I say no? Should I say no? What keeps me from saying no? That becomes part of it as well. God gave us the freedom to choose, to heal your back as well.
Yeah, we're gonna do that.
All right. Now, here's one of the things, the fourth one down there, that little key, is that there are consequences to the choices that we make. It is those consequences that stop us, not the choice. And what we do is, though, I can't choose because. If I speak up, and I get this a lot, if I speak up to the boss and I tell the boss what I think, and I have an opinion, and I do it with honor, respect, and compassion, they'll fire me. Therefore, I can't speak up. You don't understand, Charlie. In this culture, you can't speak up. I said, well, you don't understand. I don't buy that. And I said, you're afraid of the consequences. There's a woman that I worked with. She worked with the state of Connecticut, and she hated it. For her, it was a job filled with tasks, and she dreaded every day coming to work. Couldn't stand it. Was behind on time as well, all of this stuff. Hated it. And I asked her, I said, this is in my compassionate way, I said, are you chained to your desk? They have a gun at your head? Is your family a hostage? Why can't you leave this job? And she says, they have a great benefits plan. I have a son that has special needs, and they take care of all of those, and they pay me pretty well. And I go, oh, so if you were to leave this job, you would lose the money, you'd lose the benefits, and it would affect your family. I said, stop complaining. Be thankful for what you've got. She had never looked at it from the other side. She just viewed it as tasks that she had to do, and she hated it. And she blamed them for not being able to quit, where her choice was, as I put it to her this way, I said, you are choosing because of the benefits and the pay to stay. So when you change the way that you say it, you begin to change the way you think about it.
Right.
And that did it. It broke through for her, and the next time I saw her, she was in a lot better mood. And she was beginning to see this more as a work and less of a task and a chore. But sometimes it's this risk, it's the fear, and what one of the biggest things is? One of the biggest fears that we have is, what are you going to think of me? If I speak up, if I tell you what I really think about this, that, or something else, what are you going to think of me? It's this fear of what people will say about us. It's this fear of other people, fear of men, if you want to think of it that way. It is a strong one that we want to please other people. We are people pleasers to the nth degree, and it gets in our way. That's one of the things that keeps us from speaking out with honor, respect, and compassion. Now, if you speak out from a very aggressive standpoint and they slap you, I can understand that, because I'm talking about compassionate speech. I did make the mistake one time in Romania of saying, because I believe there's a lot of mythology in organizations that when people spoke out, they got killed, fired. So I mentioned that I'm in Romania, forgetting where I am. And I said, have you ever seen anybody in your organization, or do you know anybody that was ever shot? And I'm just using that as a metaphor for speaking their mind. Every hand in the room.
Oh my God. Wow.
This was about 3 or 4 years after Ceausescu.
Wow.
And over the weekend, they took me to the school and showed me the bullet holes in the wall where they stood the teachers up against the wall and shot them. I said, I don't think I'll use that example over here again.
Oh my God.
But that was real life, and that was a little bit different. Most organizations, people do not get fired for speaking up with compassion. You get fired for other things. And it's usually the disrespect and the dishonoring that they They do with each other. What you do is a reflection of your choices. I like this other one too. It says you can't do two things at the same time, and you can't be in two places at the same time, unless you're God.
You can do two things
God
at the same time.
We can't.
Well, yeah, your laundry could be
You
going
can do two things at the same time.
while you're
The laundry,
cooking.
the dishes. Why?
You're talking, what we're getting at is multitasking.
It's just that you chose
You can't multitask.
it.
Why?
Can only
Doesn't
do one
work.
thing at a time.
For men. For men.
Doesn't work, period.
I know, right?
All the studies I've seen on multitasking say it gets in the way, productivity goes down. People try it, they can't do it, just can't do it.
I knit and watch TV.
Thinking and watching TV, well, that might be.
Knitting.
Knitting.
Knitting and.
Not eating and watching.
Napoleon was reading a book and thinking.
I don't even want to know.
What's that?
They're,
They're
They're
being
being
so.
silly.
I work in a school, and when I chaperone special ed kids to the music chorus, Jeremy Martin, a wonderful director, he said that kids are not remembering lyrics to songs. Like,
Right.
we can still remember when we were in high school, because
Right.
we gave ourselves holy. They have one earbud in, and music is a backdrop to their life.
yeah.
They have a sound.
Yeah,
And that really struck me, because I thought, I'm capable of doing that if I
Right.
multitask, where I'm not gonna remember.
mhm,
And there's a danger right now, people are not having memories because they're logging them on pictures.
right.
So they're not remembering things like, and I want a
Well, the
relationship.
product of
I-
the 80s, that's
Yeah.
why I'm not.
Yeah, I don't want it to be
70s.
social media life.
Right.
Right.
Those are choices
The
that we
good
have
old
to make.
fashioned way.
The choices we have to make.
Right, Trace?
But you can see culturally, and
Mhm.
that's why I think socializing here and teaching the younger kids
Yeah.
how to connect.
Right,
Because when you have to apologize, like we did, like if you made somebody mad, and they'll say, I'm going home, you go, oh, fine, stay.
yeah.
You didn't want to go, oh, I'm sorry, you know.
No,
You
go home.
had
I
to
would usually say, go
apologize.
home, I didn't like you anyhow.
He would.
Yeah.
He would.
Yeah, you would, thank you. Yeah. It's the whole idea is about the choices and stuff,
Right, Mike?
is to get you to recognize how often we make choices. And that what strikes us is that sometimes we give away our choices and we blame other people for what we have to choose to do. So on page 9, there's a place for you, and this is what I'd like you to do as individuals and as a table, is to start thinking about this. As it says there at the top, you are here tonight because you chose to be here. You chose to be here tonight. You chose not to do something else. You said no to another thing, but you chose to be here. Somebody once asked me, they said, well, are you the product of all the choices you've made in your life? And I go, well, probably most of them. There were a few things that I don't think I got to choose. And that's what this page is about. Think about your life in general. What are a couple of things, or 92, however many you come up with at your table, are things that over which you had no choice in your life? Somebody else chose for you. Well, no, I don't want to put it that way. Things that you could not choose.
Even when you were a child, because your parents usually make you
There you go.
do stuff.
That's one of them. Yeah. While you were young, your parents made most of your choices for you.
So you want us to write those things down?
Sure.
What are things that you,
Had no choice over. I'll give you another example. I did not get to choose the century into which I was born. I would have picked a different one.
How about gender?
What'd you have? What century would you have picked?
Well, probably 2395. Somewhere around there. It vacillates, between that and the gladiator days. I would have been with the Star Trek. I was a Trekker before there was a Star
Oh,
Trek.
geez.
game.
And what makes you think you're doing anything different now?
Yeah, I would have chosen different parents. Things like that. I made choices, Dorothy and John.
write it on the paper. Yes, Bill.
And feel free to kick around at your table. You might have some interesting things come out.
Yes. He told me to feel free to kick around, so I'm kicking.
Okay. They're very quiet. What kinds of things are you coming up with? What couldn't you choose? When you look
Where
at
I
your
was
life?
born.
Where? Yeah.
When?
When?
Why?
I wouldn't have picked Ohio. I don't like Ohio.
Why?
It's so flat. And the
Living,
people,
living out of an American culture.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. Living
And to
in
whom
America.
you were born to?
Yeah, my parents. I would have picked
Where
the
I
other
lived
people.
up till the time I was 18.
Right?
Going to church.
Going to church, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, in the early years, our parents sort of dictated that.
Yeah.
You know, we went along with it,
Yep, where we went to school.
right? What do you mean where you went to school?
Well, I went
Yeah.
to school wherever my parents were.
Oh, okay, not
Where it's-
college,
Not,
school.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, not
Who
have,
your siblings were?
Yeah, that's what
Yeah, I wouldn't have had those three.
I
Yeah, they wouldn't have had
Family
me
in
either.
general.
It's being important, right?
Yeah,
had to share
This
my
is-
room,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
apologize for defending myself,
Right.
being quiet when I had something to say.
yeah. And as we were growing, we began to make choices. And we would find ways to make choices more along the lines of what we wanted. The consequences might mean some downtime, or being sent to your room, or paddlings in those days. It might have been a lot of stuff. But we began to make choices, but the consequences were the things we would struggle with. I decided where I wanted to go to college, applied there, got in, things like that. I decided whether I was going to do my homework or not. For a while, it didn't work, things like that. I decided to say yes to one and no to, 3.8 million others? And I love that. I don't remember who said that recently, whether it was Pastor Weston or somebody else. But it was when you say yes to one, you're saying no to every other female on the planet, things like that. Those are the choices. Yeah, she made choices too. I'm going to stick with this guy for a while, things along those lines. And what I want you to understand is that except for those few years in our formative days, we really couldn't, here were things that I had, when, where, parents, siblings, my physical makeup, I would have picked a different one.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have been a little bit more athletic, I think. Tall, I would have been, it's not that I'm overweight, I'm too short.
Oh, so you wanted to be a Ken, right?
I like that, it is
Yeah.
perspective.
It is perspective. My DNA that's in there. Yeah. But all of those things, beyond that, I stand here as the product of all the choices I've made in my life. I mean, if you don't like this shirt, I don't care, I chose it tonight.
My
So I
Tommy
like
used to want to be Venezuelan.
What?
A little hard, yeah. Yeah. Couldn't choose your birthing order. I love that. Have you seen any of these things that says you are what your birthing order?
Yeah.
You are where you, and they have all these things if you're number one, number two.
Yeah.
Do you realize the only way you can change is if your parents have more children ahead of you? They've locked you in with that birthing order stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
really.
you're first in line, so you can't change unless your parents have more children ahead of you.
Yeah.
It's a little hard to do.
Yeah, a little hard.
So think about it. This is sort of the next page, on page 10, this is where the struggle comes. We talk about choice, and yet, these are some of the things that come at us. We'll focus on fixing the time wasters as opposed to recognizing the choices that we're making. I think back to Ray, and I watched him wander. It was like watching a 4-year-old wander the playground, and they're all over and up and down before he came back and we started working again. And his whole thing was he gave away every choice that he had in there, and he blamed them for it. And he called them, he said, those are time wasters. And I said, well, all you got to do is, you don't have to jump in the pool now. Let me come back. I'm on my way over to the files. Stay on task. You don't have to respond to everybody. When you stop and you respond to that, you're giving away your choices. It's like giving away your checkbook with all signed checks in there. If anybody wants to do that, see me later. I'll be happy to help. A lot of people, and the third one down there is probably rethinking, I might have even moved that higher, is that most people don't recognize they have a choice. And that's a real shift in the way they have to think. So they have a different choice. They believe the lie, I didn't have a choice, I don't have the time. That's the other one, most popular. They struggle with the consequences. One of the things that you can do is begin to think about the consequences. If I do this, what's going to happen in the short run, the long run, the immediately, short run, and long run. You can begin to think about those. And if you change the way you think about the stuff, it becomes automatic. Chris has a story that this just happened, and I thought it was appropriate for what we're talking about.
Yeah, Charlie and I had a conversation, and on Wednesday morning about writing. We really feel God is calling us to this, and like somebody mentioned before, when you're working for yourself, you've got to, it's tricky because you're like, oh, that's okay, I'll just do that, I'll work tomorrow or whatever. So, we said what we have to do is just change the way we're using our time, because you have to carve out time. So the next day, or that afternoon, I was at work, and I got a text from one of the other women I work with, said, can you work for me on Friday? Now, I don't work on Friday, but in my mind, today and tomorrow were going to be 2 writing days. I have a whole list of things I wanted to work on. And I felt bad, because, we try to help each other, fill in for each other. And all of a sudden, I remembered our conversation, and it was hard to say no, but I realized I had already said yes to writing.
Yes.
And I felt so like, whoa, this is what he's talking about, in the class. And one of my problems is I say yes way too much. When I've already said yes to certain things, and then I'll say yes to people or to situations and things like that. And then I don't have any time left because I've given it all away. But no, I've made the choice. So that's what I'll be doing tomorrow, is writing.
That's how we ended up at 3 Christmas parties on the same Saturday. Said yes to all. Actually, I think we both said yes to different people. And not realized it. But that's one of the things. And sometimes we get stuck in our habits. And our habits are just, get in the car. Yeah. How many times have I driven, I was on my way to Big Y, and I end up on the interstate? The car said, we're going to Sam's. We're not going to Big Y, we're going to Sam's. And I go, how'd I get here? We just do it out of habit. Now, one of the things I want you to realize, anybody ever hear of the butter and guns graph? Anybody study economics? Remember that? It's a reverse slope graph. And it's a reverse slope.
Guns?
Butter and guns, yeah. And it has to do, the original concept was is you have $1 to spend. Do you spend it on defense or do you spend it on domestic affairs? Food. Spend it on defense or food. And the thing is if you think of this as, the 24 hours, 24 hours for, if you're spending it on this, you're spending 10 hours here, you've only got 14 hours left in the day. It's a zero sum. It never exceeds 24. And this is what our choices are like, is when we say yes to this, we're beginning to say no to something else that could have been done in those 10 hours, 1 hour, 25 minutes, whatever it happens to be. So sometimes I like to think about this as I'm stuck with the 24 hours, and if I'm spending an hour here, I can't spend it somewhere else. That's what the choices are all about. And just in looking at these, is there anything you would add to that list about the choice, about how people tend to treat choices? Anything you've ever said or anything you've heard other people say? Well, when they have to make a choice, to me, one of the obvious phrases is, I don't have the time. That's a big one. I didn't have a choice. That's another one. I like that one. I don't respect those that much. I like to talk to people about what's really going on with them. Are there other catchphrases you've heard?
Ran out of time?
Ran out of time? What else comes to mind?
Didn't have enough.
Didn't have enough time. There wasn't enough time.
Too much on my plate.
Too much on my plate. That's a very telling one. What does that suggest to you when you start hearing people say these things? There was too much on my plate. What does it sound like they were doing?
Saying yes.
to everything.
That's what Chris was talking about, yeah. Saying yes to everything. Spaghetti, yes.
Or else they don't want to, so they use that as a
Right. I don't want to say no.
That's usually a people-pleasing thing.
It's a people-pleasing thing. See, so much of this, and most time management is not taught from a Christian or a God view kinds of things. But, there is so much with this people-pleasing stuff that gets in our way. I want to please you. So, here, try some more of that. Okay, I'll take that stuff too. Next thing I know, I got a full plate. Somebody that, we like or we want them to like us comes and says, would you do this for me? Sure. And the next thing we know,
It's running over.
the plate is running over. And we go, geez, I either need a bigger plate, which you're not going to get, because you can't get more time. Or I need to start saying no. And that's the hard part is the when to say no and how to say no.
When Carol and Dean were leading the Bible study,
Yeah.
she warned us. She said, now I warn you, when you take this commitment, there will be every invitation and distraction.
Of course, yeah.
Spiritually,
Yeah.
and what I found really interesting is I was praying about art, and I committed my time, and I working on a community project. And then all of a sudden, the decorations for our weird animals came up, and I was heartbroken. I couldn't help. Because I said yes, I committed in my mind, and what happened was I illustrated this book, and I called the committee chairman, because it's a community project. And he was losing heart, and he got inspired, because I did it.
Yeah.
And now he's gonna go for more money and to make the book larger.
Right.
And they got everyone inspired, because it was dragging.
Right.
But I thought I should get this done so I can help them. But then I started to enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And
It was no longer a task.
but I said to myself, why am I not enjoying things?
Yeah. What'd you come up with?
I had the wrong attitude. It was a gift that I can do art, because I used to do the prophetic here.
Right.
And to let God tell me how it could be reintroduced with joy,
Yeah.
and not all over the rugs.
You see, what happens is sometimes we make a commitment to do A, and then B comes along, and as you said, the enemy's going to sit there and go, and they're going to bring up all kinds of fun stuff you can do. I made a commitment to go to Ohio to a 50th year anniversary for a reunion for my school. see my mother, see my family. Well, that meant I couldn't stay around here and do some of the stuff that was going on. That was a real struggle, because even towards the end, I'm thinking, I really should stay here, but I made this commitment over here. And we had a great time.
Yeah.
Because some of those people got old.
Wow.
Oh, man.
They were really old. Everybody except Chris and I.
Oh, yeah.
Thank God you put Chris
Most of them
before.
I did not recognize. But when I say yes to this, I can't do that. And sometimes this looks like it's so much more fun. Or it's in my sweet spot. It's stuff, art. I love to do this. And suddenly this becomes boring. And the more I begin to focus on what I've lost, here, it says, boy, you got the enemy saying you lost all this. Well, look at what you lost over here. Then this becomes boring.
So I
And
guess
it's
staying
a
committed,
dread, because now I've got to do it.
staying committed to your original plan.
Yeah, staying committed to the original plan, because, you know, what Chris was talking about. It's a fun office to work in. There are great people over there. They have good times together. She ministers to them as well. But, you know, she could look at that and say, geez, I could have been over there today doing that. Instead, I'm sitting here doing this silly writing. Wow, this is really crappy. This is boring. Well, he felt, I got some of it in there. To write 2 words down. This is what happens to us. is
I have a hard time making
We move our sight
commitment.
and we start looking at what we don't have.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
I think they call it covetousness. Yeah. Pride's in it, a few other things. You go back and hit that, things that we're not supposed to do. The bad fruit, if you would think of it that way. It all fits together. We begin to focus on this. Geez, I wish I could have done that. This becomes boring. It becomes a pain. It becomes overwhelming. I don't want to do it. And I go, let me see, what are they doing over there? Maybe I'll just stop in afterwards and see what they've done with the building. So, you see how that works for us? It's just Christianity 101.
I have a hard time committing to things.
You should be committed.
Probably.
Say a little bit more.
Well, okay, so even things like, well, partially because I feel like if I say yes and then there's something else going on, then I don't want to say yes to more than one thing and not know. Okay?
Yeah.
But things come up like the
So you're
dinners.
afraid of commitment.
Dinners. We got to sign up to be on the dinners. I'm like, oh yeah, I am so not signing up. No way, because then I'm committed to it. And then what if I don't show up, or what if I what if I don't show up and I was supposed to bring a dinner or something like that, or something else comes up. Oh my gosh.
That's why I put maybe on the Facebook thing.
Yeah, right?
I wish to get rid of like, because every once in a while I want to go, I dislike this.
It's not even about the grass being greener, because I know somebody, I heard this is what I heard about the grass being greener. If the grass is greener on the other side, maybe you should put some
Water
manure and water your own.
Yes.
You still have to cut it.
Or cut it.
Well, think of it this way. I may get a better offer. I hear a lot of guys say this.
I gotta see this. I may,
Get a better offer.
I may get a better offer.
That's what you meant.
Yeah,
Yeah, but isn't that just a fair commitment too? I mean,
Yes.
really?
that's what we're talking about.
That's a fear of commitment.
That's exactly what we're talking. She says I have trouble with commitment.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. This is a big part of it.
She's afraid of
I
I'm
may
looking
get a
at-
better offer
I wanna-
than
yeah.
just being obnoxious.
No. I'm looking at this and I'm going, geez, you know, I have to choose in the moment that I'm going to go to this party. Well, maybe I'll wait till the very last minute, because I might get a better offer. That's where I was going with this. The grass may be greener. Everything. I think this is probably a better phrase. So if that's the case, I'm not really going to commit. But, you know, what's a better offer than the Lord?
you know what comes up? My people perish for lack of vision. I've had to go to God because I've needed that
Yeah.
inspiration. For instance,
Right.
another commitment was to upgrade my house before the winter sets
Yeah.
in. And lots of distractions, but I had this impression, do a little bit every day, making a phone call
Right.
towards inquiring
Yeah,
how things might be scheduled, so you mentally feel, check.
yeah.
You don't physically have voila, but you work towards your goal, because a lot of times you don't know what you're doing when you need to hire people and how scheduling goes, so you make room for learning, so that you don't beat yourself up that you
Right.
didn't do it right.
Right,
And I'm
Yeah, because those
hating
people
that.
that you're scheduling aren't always committing either.
right.
Might get a better offer.
It's an epidemic kind of a thing. We like compliance sometimes. We're not really fond of commitments.
Luke, I don't even want to say this because it's convicting to me.
Huh?
Luke 9:62, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom.
Satchel Paige. Never look back, something might be gaining on you.
Yeah,
That's right. Never look back. I
that's
like that.
commitment.
Yep.
Luke 9, yeah, I gotta add that one.
Gumball rally, what's behind you does not count.
Yeah,
But sometimes
62.
couldn't commitment be that you don't wanna, that because you're a people pleaser, you're afraid that you're gonna let somebody down?
Sure.
So you don't
might
commit?
Part
as
of,
well
part of
get
it,
not commit
the
at all.
selfish side,
Yeah,
I may get a better offer, is about my pride.
yeah,
It's about me.
yeah.
I don't want to let anybody down. It's about pleasing people.
Yeah.
See how it always comes back to this stuff.
Yeah.
It's the foundational stuff in Christianity. It always comes back to this. And if we don't deal with it through the Lord, all of that stuff on that page that says, "Oh, here are all these time," they're not going to work. They'll work short term, but they won't work long term.
I totally agree.
You got to get, I'm a steward of the time He's given me. He'll help me out with it. Make the commitment to Him. So it all fits together.
I also find that with me, a lot of times, I will make a commitment to one thing, and then 3 other things pop up, and it's like, okay, how can I manage to get to all 3, or where does God want me to
Yeah.
go? Because
4 Christmas parties in the same day.
yeah,
Just
right.
like that. Yeah.
so
Trying to make them all.
Yeah, try to make it
Yeah.
all. Dave? Sure. Pardon?
I just want to share a story. When I was at Morning Star School, they this young man had made a commitment to do a ministry in the city that weekend, and then he found out there was this conference going on. So he went up to the director of the school. He said, I'm going to go to that conference. She goes, no, you're not. And it was a really awesome conference. And he's like, what do you mean? She said, you made a commitment. And that was such a learning for this young man, because he thought, oh, well, this conference, the Lord's going to be just really doing some great stuff and just going, whatever they were going to do in the city, cleaning up an area or whatever. He thought that because God was going to be doing this great thing, of course that's where God would want him. Instead of, no, he made the commitment. And he had to stick with it. And he didn't get to go to the conference. I sometimes think we have so many, 18 kinds of cornflakes, we have all these choices, and that, a better offer. I think that sticks for a lot of us. Well, I don't know if I should do this, because what about that? And it's really good to say, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it.
Yeah, stick to it.
When you get on the other side of it, it's like, wow,
You
did
grow up.
it. Yeah.
Grow in the Lord.
Yeah,
Not only that,
it's a good
usually
thing.
the first commitment that you make, that's where God really wants you.
Probably, yeah.
Right,
Most of the
like if you
time.
say, well, God wanted me here, and then all of a sudden, oh, no, I think God
Yeah.
wants me over here.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's that other passage in Matthew, I think, let your yes be yes and your no be no.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Right.
Anything
Yeah.
else is evil, from the evil one. There is no maybe.
There's no maybe.
And then there's Yoda.
All right, so, and there's Yoda.
Do.
Well, so what, so how
Or
do you,
don't
how
do,
do
there
you,
is no
some-
try.
so how do you work, the first invitation that comes along? Oh, yes, or no, and that's it. And then that's your decision,
Yes.
and that's it. And if something else comes up, then you say yes or
I'm
no
sorry.
again, and I don't know.
Ones and zeros, yeah. It's yeses and nos.
I don't know, I'm not,
Yeah, a lot of
I'm
it
not so
comes
sure
down,
about that.
believe it or not, it comes down to stuff that's as simple as that. But if you look at this, I have to make a decision for yes, or I have to make a decision for no. And if I take this route, I can't do this. And that's the dilemma that we struggle with.
Yeah.
And where we have the greatest amount of help is from the Lord. This is what the prophetic can be about. This is the promptings. This is listening to his voice. Where do you want me? Why don't you down there cleaning that toilet right now, not going to the movies with your friends?
I mean, and it's not like what I'm talking about, like some of these things, like there were, 100 different graduation parties. And I wanted to go to every one of them. I would have loved to have been at every one of them.
So don't go to any of them.
Why?
Well, you can't make a commitment to go to all of them, so just don't go to any of them. That way you don't have to worry about it.
Nobody will
So
like it.
the day comes up and it's like, oh my gosh, I am so exhausted because
Right.
it's like every weekend that it was like I just can't even go. I just can't even go.
Okay, so here was the decision, that these were graduation parties?
Yeah, there were graduation parties, birthday parties. It was like all,
Okay,
all
parties,
the time.
multiple parties.
Yeah,
Okay. And how many did you get to? How many did you want to go to?
I think I went to 2 out of 4 of them.
Okay, so went to 2. In the immediate, what was the consequences of going to the 2 parties?
Of
What were the
going to
results?
them?
What was the effect? I went to 2 parties, what was the short-term effect? What was the immediate effect? Had a good time?
Well, yeah, I mean, actually it was like, no, I'm crazy. I've got to get through, I got to get through run. When I got there, yeah, it was fine. I got there, it was after work, they're all on Saturdays and everything. I'm exhausted. I'm like, here I am, take me, and I enjoyed, spending time with people when I was there. Tired all the time.
I'll never do it again. In the short term, there was running, there might have been a little fun while you're there. In the immediate, short term, within the next couple of days, you felt exhausted.
Oh, I was already exhausted.
And I don't know what the long term was, but it might have led to some degree of frustration with, I wish there was a way I could have gone to all 4, but couldn't. And we don't look at these things. We don't look at what happens over the long run in terms of the results, the effect.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, that's what Chris did very quickly in making the decision to say no to that woman who wanted her to work. Was I made a commitment to this, if I don't keep it, in the short term, I may have fun in the office, but
Well,
a little
am
bit
I allowed
longer, it's
to
gonna
say-
be, I'm not gonna have any words on paper.
Well, we're told, no maybes, but
Yeah.
am I allowed to go and say, you know what, I just need to take this to the Lord?
Sure, you
Isn't that a
can.
maybe?
No, it's postponement.
It's just thinking about it.
Just thinking about it. See, maybe, when people hear it, means yes. Yeah. Maybe usually means yes.
How I feel that day. Maybe.
People hear yes,
And then, and you have to take stuff home to George.
right? Well, that's the thing, when we're talking over, Chris and I do that, we're talking over with Chris, she wants to talk it over with me, want to pray about it,
It's the first thing.
yeah, things to do. It's, as opposed to, I think one of the other things is if we can get maybe out of our vocabulary, a lot of this stuff will become easier.
Decide on my own.
Because at the end of the day, I think our choices are much simpler than we realize. The consequences that kills us.
What I was gonna say is, in taking it to the Lord, the stuff has happened to me, which is, sometimes I get an impression to make a phone call, let someone know I'm thinking of them, but I can't make it.
Right.
Can we set something up another time? Like my mother being in the hospital, I could have turned around and gone right to St.
Sure.
Francis, but she's at Hartford.
Right.
Stuff like that. But I did speak to her, she goes, no, there's no reason, blah, blah, blah. But I'm gonna check back with them. Because it's hard, it's hard to know, am I a bad daughter because I'm here, or was I supposed to be here?
Right.
Yes.
Am I supposed to eat candy and laugh?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Or wait in a waiting room?
That's a no-brainer.
Now, these are choices that we make. Now, let me, because we got about 5 minutes left, Chris tells me. There's some stuff in here that we've done parts of it already, but I want to draw your attention to it, especially talk about next week. Here's what happens to us. It may have happened to you sometime along your life. Chris's mother-in-laws in general are like this. She would see us, we're going out to dinner. This is years ago. She'd say, oh, going out again. Yeah, we're going out to dinner. It's our anniversary. Oh, okay. I'll be here. Alone. again. What's the phone number for the young guy that lives across the street in case I have an emergency?
Oh, my God. That's a slice of guilt.
Yeah, it's called being passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Wow.
There are all kinds of ways that praise comes at you. Sometimes in the workplace, it's do a good job and you'll be rewarded. I know, this is right up your alley. I know you can do this. You do a good job and you're gonna
If I
benefit.
had 9 more guys like you,
I'd hang myself, you know?
Oh, man.
Sometimes and this is people pleasing stuff again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, first of all, we have to begin to recognize the words that are coming at us and go, those are not from the Lord.
Yeah.
That's in the moment. This is why this stuff has to be in the moment. This is not from the Lord. You can ask the Lord real quick, should I take this?
That's
You've
right.
been invited
That's
to 2
what I'm
parties. Lord, do you want me to go to both of these? Just while you're being quiet. But it's that private, it's that time that everybody said they wanted to have with him, where you begin to hear those and recognize the promptings.
Right.
And if you hear something like, no, those are mean people, probably in the Lord. You know, if you hear something that's contrary to the word, probably not the Lord. Okay, that's encouragement I'll give you. We'll talk more about that next week. Now,
That's encouragement.
page 11, you've given me some of your time wasters already. That's what we did in the beginning, some of the stuff you wanted to deal with. Right now, the top 3 in business and in other places seem to be meetings, technology, and entertainment. Those are the 3 things that we think of those are time wasters. Now, what Charlie would say is, I chose to go to that meeting even though it was boring. Can I get out of them? Absolutely. One of the things that I did with my boss was negotiated never to attend another one of his staff meetings unless he felt it was really necessary. And we talked about that with honor, dignity, compassion, a lot of respect. I said, if you're not interested in this, I'll let it go, but I want to raise the issue that my time would be better spent working with customers than sitting in the meetings. I will get all the information you've got. I don't want to come to any more.
Okay.
He agreed. You know what his big concern was? He says, what if the other 5 guys do this? And I said, well, if they did, what would that suggest to you?
That you're boring.
That they're
Maybe,
pointless.
no, maybe we don't need these
They're
meetings.
pointless, yeah.
Maybe we don't need them. So, you can do it. It's part of the conversation. And the real thing is honor, dignity, respect, compassion. Those will steer you well in those. The entertainment, that's probably one of my biggies. I love TV, I love movies, things along those lines. You get in my way. There's a classic piece in here. I do not know who the author was. You can read this. It's called The Value of Time. You can find it on the internet. But it's all about, it says to realize the value of 1 year, ask a student who failed a grade. Do they still do that?
Yeah.
No, not really, didn't feel it.
Yes, they do.
Yeah. 1 month, ask a mother who gave premature birth. And I love the last one, because you see this every time there's an Olympic event. The value of 1 millisecond to the person who came in second.
yeah.
It's a classic piece. I think you might enjoy reading that.
I'm thinking of Jerry Seinfeld who said, he won by then.
Right. 13 shows you that what you have in terms of the year, in terms of the hours that you have. This one was designed for people at work because we used to believe that there were 2,080 hours available for the work year for an individual. When we started looking at it, we go, oh, that's not true.
Right.
Because you got to take out vacations, you got to take out personal days, and it really came down to about 1,840 hours. So when we began to look at, how much could you expect in terms of working things, it was not the 2,080.
Well, I don't know, it looks pretty right for the end schedule.
I know. So we got to round some of this stuff. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a task. This one, 14 is sort of redundant, and as an afterthought, I probably would have put it in there because this is what we're going to do next week, is we're going to take a look at your time and say, okay, we have 168 hours in a week, how are we using them? Now think of it this way, is if you sleep an 8-hour night, 1/3, yeah, I know it would be, 1/3 of your year is asleep.
Who sleeps 8 hours?
I'm working on it. I'm up to about 7. I
Yeah.
used to be at 5.
But is that like the REM or is it like?
No,
the
it's
good?
just, I go to bed at 9 and I get up, 6 hours later,
You don't
7 hours
wake up to
later.
pee or anything like that?
Occasionally. Not that often, I guess. But this is where we're going next week with 14, is we're going to take a look at when you start considering all of the things that you're doing. It'll be more realistic than this one. This one right now would strictly be in terms of guesswork. But this is what we're going to end up with when you take a look at your work for next week, your time logs. And this, 15, I'm going to give you as an assignment.
So we're not doing 14 of the assignments next week?
Yeah, 14 is redundant with what you'll do for next week. Yeah, in a rewrite, I would probably leave that page out.
I'm gonna do it anyway.
15 is a setup for part of next week in terms of you're going to see how you're spending your time. This is if I had the choice, if I could do it my way, what would I want to do? What are my 7 top things that I would want to do? That's what they're asking there. What are my, and if you don't get 7, don't worry about it. 7 is the maximum number you can handle at a time. 7 rungs on the mental ladder. If you come up with 3, you'll be doing good. But if you get to 7, that's okay. And this is not a definitive list. Please feel free to add to it. But the other part of this is that, I've already decided that this is a gift. I got to steward it. It's a gift from God. I got to steward it. I have choices. And I'm going to start paying attention to the consequences. And I'm not going to let fear of people or my pride get in the way. I'm going to push back on those. I'm going to spend my time getting the prompts from the Lord. That's sort of the foundational stuff. And if we don't deal with that, the rest of the stuff isn't going to matter a whole lot. The 2 pages, now, here's what happens. I'm going to give you a preview of next week. We come up with a couple of things on that list. One of the things that I said when I was in the business world, because I was missing an awful lot of kids' plays and soccer games and, whatever else it was, that went high on my list. Now, the charge, after you've figured out what's really important to you, where you want it, is that's what goes on your schedule first. You don't schedule your work. You schedule what's important to you. So I took the year's calendar and I went through and I put all of their stuff on it, because you get that at the beginning of the year. And I would look at the days I wanted to be home. Can I do that? What do I have to shift around in my own life? So by scheduling what was important to me, as opposed to doing the ABC list, the priority of the work, I got in the way. I took a bigger picture, 168-hour week, 52 weeks out of the year, what's going on. And it became easier. I also made it a little bit smaller. In my work, in the business, I wanted a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the afternoon with nothing there. I blocked out every day. And if you were to call me, Shannon, and say, could we meet at 8:30? The company ran like 8:30 to 5. I would say I have a commitment. Now, commitment was to me. You didn't know that.
Yeah, right, you're at this thing.
I have a commitment. And if you said, well, it's really important, since I made the commitment, I can change it. I said, okay. But I didn't give it away every day.
That's great.
At the end of the day, it was the same thing.
And working for, a corporation,
Yeah, it was a
But when you
corporation.
say to schedule that, the work second,
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying, isn't your work schedule not negotiable? I mean,
Nope.
back then, when you were
Yeah.
doing, isn't that not negotiable? Wasn't that not negotiable? No, I mean,
Yeah,
I
I'm
know you
trying-
have a choice, and,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they would also have a choice to not keep you, to,
Right.
right?
Was it not negotiable? Everything is negotiable. That's the other thing about Charlie. You got to understand is everything's negotiable. I've taught negotiation as well. That's why I'm smiling. Yeah, I know. We're running over a bit here. When you do it and how you do it are negotiable. Yeah, it is. It's a matter of a conversation. So I would like that. Yeah, how far over am I?
About 15 minutes.
About 15 minutes, okay. See that? I didn't end on time. Didn't manage the time. It was a good
That was my
conversation.
fault, I was late.
That's all right.
I-
Here's what I'd like to hear real quick. Either something that surprised you or something that you realized as we went through this. Just real quick, give me a couple of things. What surprised you about the time management stuff so far? Or what was something that was reaffirmed and that you realized?
Can't manage them.
Can't manage time.
No, it's just, it's, a lot of it's emotional,
Yeah,
and it's, negotiable.
negotiable.
Is that a word?
Yeah, it is now.
Say it,
I was trying to get a rap out of it, and I ran out.
Okay.
I know, I have a lot of time. I just don't know how to use it well.
Right, that's what we're gonna work about next week. Generally, the flow for what happens is we find out where we are. We could be, the other pages, we know where we wanna be. And those two mesh up in the form of a plan. What comes out of that are some goals and how we manage that. And then the tips and techniques come in for how do we make the shift. The underlying stuff, though, is recognizing this is a gift from God. We get to steward it, and we have a choice. And those are the big things. Okay. Any other thoughts? See y'all next week.
So good, so good, Charlie.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying with me.
Good job, Charlie.
Okay.